This is Sylvia with 2CN, and we're here today in Chicago's historic Hyde Park community. Now, Hyde Park has been home to some of Chicago's most prominent African American residents, including most recently our President of the United States, Barack Obama. In fact, we're here in front of his hair salon right now. We're going to head in a couple of seconds. We're going to ask some of the gentlemen in there if they believe that Chicago, particularly black Chicago, has lost its luster in the past couple of years. So please stay with us. We're going to head inside and find out what they have to say. All right, so we're here today with Mario, Chicago radio personality, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about what it is that he sees in Black Chicago today, particularly in Hyde Park. So, Mario, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. It's nice to be here. Nice to be here. Nice to meet you.
Well, it's very nice to meet you too. So tell me, do you spend a lot of time in the Hyde Park area?
Yes, I do. I kind of live in Hyde Park and in South Shore, and I have a radio program on WHPK at the University of Chicago.
Okay, so now having a radio program, you typically need to sort of be aware of the community that you're in and the people who are listening to you and the area that you're serving. Do you feel that in this area, the black community is thriving? Is it declining? How would you say, since you observe it every single day, things are materializing?
I think Hyde Park, like a lot of communities in Chicago, is gentrifying. I think that there's a bigger change on the horizon. I think it started when the city wanted to put the Olympics in Hyde Park. And I believe, as a matter of fact, I know for a fact that another 2 or 3 years, Hyde Park is going to look like a completely different place than it did 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, so when you say that Hyde Park is being gentrified, that typically means that one group of people is being pushed out to make room for another group of people.
It's like, okay, in Hyde Park there were areas where you could live, lower income areas, or not lower income areas, but people with low income could live in Hyde Park and live pretty comfortably and exist in a community. But because you've got the University of Chicago, who for better or for worse is my employ, they're changing the face of the neighborhood. And them changing the face of the neighborhood, they are allowing their base more access to be involved in the neighborhood, their base being their students who aren't from the U.S.
So are you saying then that poor residents in Hyde Park are being pushed out to make room for the University of Chicago base?
I'm saying everybody. If you don't have any money and you're in Hyde Park, Kenwood, Oakland, you're not going to be in Hyde Park, Kenwood, Oakland. You have to have some money. You've got to have money there. If you go down any of these blocks here in Hyde Park that aren't apartment building filled blocks, they're all houses.
Is that change for the better or is it for the worse? How do you see that impacting in the area?
Well, I don't think you got to look in Hyde Park for that. You got to look 10 or 20 blocks in the other direction.
Is the president's neighborhood? The presidency is, of course, the highest office of public service and government one can hold in the country. It is a very prestigious title, and his home, his neighborhood should be as prestigious as he. You know, he shouldn't come back to an area that's not prestigious. So how do you respond to people who would make those claims?
The prestige was here before Obama even moved to Hyde Park. Hyde Park is Hyde Park. You know what I'm saying? It's Hyde Park. This is that neighborhood. It was that neighborhood. And no disrespect at all to President Obama, but it was that neighborhood before. I mean, when I was a little kid, Hyde Park was that must live in neighborhood. Years and years ago, this used to be a township. It wasn't even part of the city. It was annexed. And then it became a part of Chicago many years ago. It's a special place. I mean, the Prestige is in the lake. It's at the Point. It's at the U of C. It's in these little enclaves, these little neighborhood, little blocks, little, social things that jump off. Back in the 70s and the late 60s, this was like a hippie neighborhood. Everybody was co-oping and proactive in the community. and that hasn't really changed. But it's a lot of it's what it is.
Well, let me just ask you this then. What then should the poor residents do? You say this is a bad economy. Most people are inclined to agree with you in that respect. And if they are being pushed out, what do they do?
As things stand right now, the current economic situation is not very. It's not in our favor. Bartering. We should probably go back to what DuSable did. Start bartering. Start working amongst each other. Doing more co-oping with cooking meals for each other. Schooling our children and being a little bit more proactive in that respect, keeping our kids out of trouble, keeping them off the street. I mean, but I don't know what to say about somebody that needs a place to live. Having been in a situation where I've needed a place to live before, all I can say is pray, and pray often.
Because as you know, Hyde Park is one of those areas that Black Chicago is always held in very high esteem, and a lot of prominent residents have been here. How do you see this impacting that?
I don't know yet what that impact will be. I mean, if you're asking me to get to predict, I can give you a I can give you a prediction. I think if this current economic situation continues, yet there are people who are building and profiting off of the current economic situation and disenfranchising Black Chicago. And we're talking about a Black Chicago that's already divided amongst itself with the haves and the have-nots. If it's like that, there will be a bit of chaos, I would imagine. I'm not calling for like anarchy, but I think it would be kind of chaotic. It's if I'm sending my son or my daughter to a school in Hyde Park, but I live in South Shore. I mean, what is that saying about the neighborhood I live in? That's going to be chaotic. I think it would be fair to say it'll be a ripple effect across the city.
Okay, well, there you have it. Thank you so much, Sylvia Snowden, Mario, 2CN. Please stay with us. So I don't know about you, but I certainly learned a lot. Now, whether the chaos Mario predicted will actually come to be, I can't say. What I do know, though, is that Hyde Park is one of Chicago's most treasured neighborhoods, our diamond in the rough, home to our president, and I hope that part of our city never changes. Thanks so much for joining us. Come back and see us again soon.